The Zelthar Empire stretched across half the known galaxy. Its star systems gleamed like jewels in a dark ocean, connected by great silver trade routes and guarded by massive warships. For thousands of years, the Empire had ruled through strength. No rival had ever lasted long against its fleets. On every world, people spoke of the Emperor's power with respect and a little fear. But near the edge of Imperial space, far from the busy central worlds, something unusual appeared. It was a single ship. Compared to Imperial cruisers, it was small, no larger than a city shuttle. Its design was smooth and pale, almost quiet-looking, with no heavy weapons or armor that the scanners could detect. The ship drifted calmly near a gas giant in the outer reaches of the Saranth system. Its signal was clear, though the language was strange. It requested permission to speak with the Imperial Senate. Commander Relvek, who oversaw that sector, frowned at the report. "A ship from Earth?" he asked, looking at the holographic data. "Never heard of it." "Uncharted colony, perhaps," his aide suggested. "Their tech looks minimal." Relvek studied the display again. The vessel's engines were advanced, smooth and efficient. But there were no visible cannons or torpedo bays. No shields either, at least none the scanners could measure. It was not the kind of craft any sane species would send into Imperial space without protection. Still, the signal repeated, polite and steady, requesting audience. No hostility intended. Relvek decided to take no chances. He ordered 3 destroyers to form an escort and hailed the small craft. "Unidentified vessel, you are in restricted space. State your origin and purpose," a calm voice replied. "This is the Terran envoy Promise of Dawn. We represent the people of Earth. We come to speak, not to harm." The words were plain, but something about the speaker's tone made the bridge crew exchange looks. It was quiet, measured, but also certain. There was no tremor of fear, even though the envoy's ship was surrounded by Imperial guns. Relvek allowed them to approach the Saranth station, the nearest Imperial outpost. The small ship docked smoothly, moving as if its pilot could predict every drift of air inside the bay. When the ramp lowered, 3 humans stepped out. They were taller than most Zeltharians, but not by much. Their clothing was simple, dark uniforms without rank symbols or medals. The leader, a woman with calm eyes, looked around the hangar with interest, not worry. She offered a polite bow. "I am Mara Loren," she said, "Envoy of Earth. These are my colleagues, Jace Wren and Talia Kor. We thank you for your welcome." Relvek raised a ridged brow. "You enter Imperial territory without invitation." "Why?" Mara's answer was gentle. "We have a message for the Emperor. It is best given in person." That was bold, too bold for newcomers. Most races sent tributes or at least official requests through proper channels. This small group had arrived as if certain they would be heard. Still, Relvek could not deny their courtesy. He led them to a meeting chamber while he contacted the capital. As he walked, he watched them closely. They moved with quiet precision, scanning their surroundings but without nervousness. They seemed ready for what he could not guess. On the central world of Zethra Prime, the Emperor's advisors listened to Relvek's report with interest. Humans were a little-known species, only recently recorded by Imperial explorers. Their home lay beyond a chain of unstable wormholes difficult to cross. Few details were available: a blue planet with many seas and a population still small compared to Imperial worlds. No wars with neighbors, no history of expansion. They were, according to old records, peaceful, perhaps too peaceful to survive among the stars. But the message they carried sounded serious. The Emperor himself ordered that they be brought to Zethra Prime under guard. The journey through the star lanes took 3 days. During that time, Mara and her companions remained calm. They spent hours speaking softly together, studying Imperial maps and asking polite questions about trade, science, and culture. They never asked about weapons or fleets, which puzzled Relvek. Most new civilizations were eager to learn about the Empire's strength. These 3 seemed more interested in how people lived. On the 3rd day, the convoy entered orbit around Zethra Prime, a shining world of silver seas and towering crystal spires. The humans stood at the viewing port, watching as if memorizing every detail. The capital city, Zethra's crown, lay beneath a golden sky. Its palace complex gleamed with layered domes and tall spires, symbols of Imperial authority. Soldiers lined the landing field when the visitors disembarked. They were led through wide halls of polished stone. Murals showed the Empire's victories, battles won, rebellions crushed, banners planted on foreign soil. Everywhere there were reminders of power. The humans walked past them with quiet attention, their faces unreadable. At last, they stood before the Emperor. High Ruler Valen was tall even for a Zeltharian. His silver crest rising above his dark robe, he regarded the humans with sharp eyes. "You have come far," he said. "Why?" Mara stepped forward. "We come with a message, Your Majesty. A truth you may not yet know. Humanity does not seek war with your people or with any other, but there is something you must understand about us." Valen tilted his head. "And what is that?" "We do not fight wars," Mara said simply. "We end them." A murmur rippled through the court. The Emperor's generals looked at each other. Some frowned. Others laughed softly, thinking it arrogance. Valen raised a hand for silence. "That is a bold claim from a species unknown to us." "It is not a claim," Mara said. Her voice remained calm, steady. "It is history. We come not as soldiers, but as those who have learned how to stop conflict before it devours all. We offer this knowledge if you wish to hear." The Emperor studied her for a long moment. "We shall see if your words carry weight." He ordered the humans to remain in the royal guest wing while the Imperial Senate debated their offer. In the quiet of their rooms, Mara and her companions discussed the meeting. "They underestimate us," Jace said, pacing near the window. "They think we're weak." "Not weak," Mara replied. "New. They measure strength in ships and armies. They cannot imagine a strength that does not roar." Talia, seated with a small tablet, looked up. "Do you think they will listen?" "They will," Mara said softly. "But first, they must see what we mean." Elsewhere in the Senate chamber, Imperial officials argued. Some saw the humans as harmless dreamers, best sent home before they embarrassed themselves. Others sensed something deeper. The reports from Saranth Station described their calm under pressure, their quiet confidence. No weapons, yet no fear. High General Keth warned against taking chances. If these Terrans truly know a way to end wars, they may upset the balance of power. We must learn their methods, or control them. The Emperor listened, then gave his decision. "We will test them. If they speak truth, they may serve a purpose. If they lie, we will send them back beyond our borders." That night, Mara stood on a balcony looking out over Zethra's crown. The city glittered below, lights stretching toward the horizon. Airships glided silently through the warm evening. She felt the pulse of a great civilization, proud, brilliant, and restless. "Will they ever stop fighting on their own?" Jace asked quietly, joining her. "They have forgotten how," Mara said. "They believe conflict is strength, but strength is also the wisdom to end it. And if they don't accept our help?" Mara's gaze remained on the lights. "Then we keep trying. Ending wars is not only about strategy, it is about patience." Far below, the Senate hall still glowed as debates continued late into the night. The Empire was powerful but also curious, and curiosity, Mara knew, was a door. Somewhere beyond the city, hidden among the stars, lay worlds where battles raged without end. The Empire had been fighting for centuries, conquering, defending, suppressing uprisings. It had become so used to war that peace felt like weakness. Humanity had chosen another path. After long ages of its own troubles, Earth had learned that every battle ended not with victory alone, but with understanding. Wars were not storms of chance. They were patterns fed by fear, pride, or hunger. See the pattern, and one could untie the knot. Now that knowledge stood before an emperor who believed only in force. Mara felt the weight of the task ahead. The words she had spoken, "We do not fight wars. We end them," were not a boast. They were a promise, and promises carried responsibility. Behind her, Talia placed a hand on the balcony rail. "Tomorrow they will decide if we may speak further." Mara nodded. "Tomorrow begins the work." Above them, the night sky shimmered with stars and distant nebulae. Somewhere out there, conflicts waited to burn. But for now, in the heart of the Empire, 3 quiet humans stood ready to offer another way. Morning light spilled across the tall spires of Zethra's crown. The imperial palace gleamed like crystal caught in a golden sunrise. Guards in silver armor stood at every entrance, still and silent. Inside, the Senate prepared for a rare session called by the Emperor himself. In the guest wing, the three humans rose early. Mara Lauren watched the city through a clear wall of glass. The streets far below were alive with air cars and walkers heading to their tasks. The Empire looked calm, but she could feel a current beneath the surface, a tension born of centuries of conquest. Jace Wren stood behind her, fastening the collar of his dark jacket. "Do you think they'll let us speak today?" he asked. "They must," Mara said. "They've never met a people like us. Curiosity will win." Talia Kor adjusted her datapad where she had stored records of Earth's long efforts for peace. "I wonder how much they know of their own wars," she murmured. "They have fought so long it may seem natural to them." Mara turned from the window. "That is why we're here, and to show another way." A knock came at the door. Two Zeltharian attendants entered, bowing politely. "Envoys," one said. "The Emperor invites you to address the Senate this morning." The Senate chamber was vast, shaped like a great bowl beneath a dome of silver glass. Hundreds of senators sat in rising tiers, their robes bright with the colors of their provinces. Military leaders stood along the walls, their medals catching the light. At the center, on a raised platform, sat Emperor Vaylon, calm and regal. The humans were led to a circle at the chamber's heart. Mara felt many eyes upon her, some curious, others doubtful. She placed her hands behind her back, standing with quiet strength. Vaylon spoke first. "Envoys of Earth, the Senate awaits your explanation. You claim that your people do not fight wars but end them. Tell us how this is possible." Mara inclined her head. "With respect, Your Majesty, it is not magic or mystery. It is the result of long and painful learning. My people were not always peaceful. Long ago, we fought many battles, among ourselves and with others. Those wars taught us terrible lessons. The chamber grew quiet. Even those who doubted seemed willing to listen." Talia stepped forward, holding her datapad. "May I show you something?" she asked. With a nod from the Emperor, she activated a small projector. Images shimmered in the air, old photographs, videos, and documents from Earth. "These are records from our past," Talia explained. "For thousands of years, humans fought for land, for power, for beliefs. We built weapons and armies thinking victory would bring safety, but every war left scars on land, on families, on minds." One image showed a ruined city, its buildings broken by fire. Another displayed a treaty signing where former enemies shook hands. "Slowly," Talia continued, "we learned that true safety does not come from endless fighting. It comes from understanding why conflicts begin. Fear, greed, pride, and stopping them at the root." Jace stepped forward now, his voice firm but calm. "We learned to talk before we strike. We learned to make agreements, to build alliances. We made councils where all sides could speak. And when fighting could not be avoided, we acted quickly to stop it from spreading. We chose to treat war as a failure, not a way of life." A low murmur ran through the chamber. Some senators leaned closer, interested. Others crossed their arms. General Keth, standing near the Emperor, spoke with a note of challenge. "That may work on a single world, but we command an empire of 1,000 systems. There are pirates, rebels, rival powers. Diplomacy alone cannot protect us." Mara met his gaze. "You are right, General. There are times when words are not enough. But even then, war must not become a habit. We have tools to see patterns before they grow dangerous, to predict when leaders are ready for talks or when supplies and pride push them to violence. We act before the storm begins." Vaylon leaned forward on his throne. "You speak as if you can see into the minds of others." "Not see," Mara replied, "but listen carefully. Every conflict has a story. Find the story and you can find the door to peace." Another senator, older and robed in green, raised a clawed hand. "If this is true, why did you come to us? What do you want?" "We seek nothing for ourselves," Mara said. "But we see that your empire has been at war for many generations. Perhaps you have forgotten what it feels like to be still. We believe peace would give you greater strength than conquest ever could." The Emperor was silent for a moment. Around him, whispers filled the chamber. At last, Vaylon said, "Words are fine, but proof is better. If you can end a conflict in our realm, you will earn the Senate's trust." General Keth nodded. "There is a place that could serve as a test, sire. The world of Tarvis." At the name, several senators murmured in agreement. Tarvis was known throughout the Empire, a rich planet torn apart by two factions fighting for control of its mines. For 30 years, Imperial troops had tried to keep order. Nothing worked for long. Tarvis bleeds, Keth said. If the Terrans can stop its war, perhaps they have something worth hearing. Valen studied the humans. Will you accept this trial? Mara looked at Jace and Talia. Both nodded. She turned back to the Emperor. We accept. Later, as they walked through a garden behind the palace, the humans spoke privately. It will be dangerous, Jace said. Tarvis is not a place for talkers. They've been fighting for decades. That is why we must go, Mara replied. If we cannot help there, we cannot help anywhere. Talia touched the smooth leaves of a flowering tree. They gave us this challenge because they expect us to fail. Then we will surprise them, Mara said with a faint smile. While the humans prepared, the Imperial Court worked to gather information. Records of Earth's history were studied. Scholars traced the story of humanity's rise. Small tribes learning to cooperate, nations forming alliances, explorers crossing oceans, then stars. Again and again, humans had faced the choice between destruction and peace. Again and again, they had found ways, sometimes hard, sometimes slow, to stop fighting. The archivists were puzzled by one detail. Though humans had learned to value peace, they were not helpless. They had created defense forces quick and precise. When danger came, they could act with speed few could match. Yet they did not seek to conquer. They held their strength in reserve. Strange people, one scholar said to another. They carry a sword but prefer not to draw it. Perhaps that is why they may succeed where we fail, the other replied. The next day, Mara, Jace, and Talia met with General Keth in a planning room. A map of Tarvis filled the table. 2 regions were marked in red and blue, their borders jagged. These factions call themselves the Core and the Crest, Keth explained. They fight for control of the Iron Valleys. Both sides have leaders, armies, and grudges too old to count. We tried to mediate. They would not listen. We will listen, Mara said. Keth studied her face. You are confident. We are prepared, she corrected gently. Keth frowned but said no more. That evening, the Emperor hosted a private dinner for the envoys. Lanterns floated above the long table, casting warm light over crystal dishes. Valen spoke little at first, observing the visitors as they tasted the Empire's food. At last he said, Why risk yourselves for a people you barely know? Mara set down her cup. Because every war hurts more than the soldiers who fight it. It steals homes, futures, and hope. If we can save even one world from that, it is worth the risk. The Emperor regarded her for a long moment. Something in her words seemed to strike him. He gave a slow nod. Tomorrow you leave for Tarvis. Show us what your kind can do. When the dinner ended, the humans returned to their quarters. Outside, the city's lights flickered like stars fallen to the ground. Jace looked out the window. Do you think they truly want us to succeed? Mara stood beside him, her gaze steady. Not all, but some hope we can. That is enough. Talia set down her datapad, her voice quiet. Tarvis is far away, but tonight I can almost hear the people there. They want the fighting to stop, even if they don't know how. Then we will help them find a way, Mara said. In the stillness that followed, the 3 shared a silent resolve. Beyond the palace walls, the Empire went on with its busy life, unaware that a small mission was about to begin, one that could change its history. At dawn, the humans boarded a sleek shuttle provided by the Imperial fleet. As they strapped in, Mara looked back at the capital one last time. The spires shone against a pale sky. She felt a steady calm settle inside her. Their task was simple to name but hard to achieve. End the war on Tarvis. For the Empire, it was only a test. For the people of Tarvis, it could be the difference between ruin and a future. For humanity, it was a chance to prove their quiet promise true. As the shuttle rose into the sky, the sun touched the domes of the palace with fire. Somewhere above, stars waited, and among them a world in need of peace. The ship's engines hummed. Jace checked their gear. Talia reviewed her files on the factions. Mara closed her eyes for a moment, focusing her thoughts. When she opened them, determination filled her gaze. Let's end a war, she said softly. The shuttle slipped into the bright morning and climbed toward the waiting stars. The shuttle carrying Mara, Jace, and Talia entered the Tarvis system at dawn. A pale star shone across a world of green valleys and silver rivers. From space, Tarvis looked peaceful, but the humans knew the surface told another story. Imperial Commander Relvek, now assigned to oversee them, pointed to the planet through the viewing window. Tarvis, he said. A rich world, iron, copper, fertile soil. The people here should be thriving, but instead they tear each other apart. The ship descended through thin clouds, revealing broad plains dotted with farms, broken roads, and half-finished towns. Smoke curled in the distance where battles had scarred the land. Jace leaned forward, his brow furrowed. So much potential wasted. They've been fighting 30 years, Relvek said. The core controls the western valleys. The crest rules the mountains. Both claim the rivers. Both think they're the rightful leaders. Has anyone asked them what they truly need? Mara asked. Relvek blinked. We sent officers to negotiate. They refused. Perhaps they were not ready to hear officers, Talia said quietly. Relvek gave a puzzled look but said nothing as the shuttle approached a fortified outpost on the edge of neutral territory. Tarves Station was a cluster of steel domes surrounded by a low wall. Imperial banners snapped in the breeze. Soldiers watched as the humans stepped onto the dusty ground. A young lieutenant greeted them. Envoys, welcome. We've arranged meetings with both factions. But be careful. They don't trust outsiders and they hate each other. Mara smiled gently. Thank you. We will take care. Inside the station, a map displayed red and blue zones. The core in the valleys, the crest in the mountains. A jagged line marked the front with small dots for villages caught in the middle. Talia studied the map. The fighting spreads along the rivers. Whoever holds the water holds the fields. Yes, the lieutenant said. They've fought over irrigation rights for years. Jace looked thoughtful. That means water is not just a resource. It's a reason for pride, a symbol. Mara nodded. Then we must address more than supply. We must reach the heart of the grievance. The first meeting was with the core leaders in a dusty hall near the valley edge. 6 elders sat behind a table, their faces lined by years of worry. Their banners, a golden sun on brown cloth, hung behind them. Mara bowed lightly. We come in peace as friends. The eldest elder eyed her carefully. Many have said that. Few meant it. I understand, Mara said, but we are not here to take sides or control your land. We wish to hear your story. The elders exchanged surprised glances. One spoke. The crest has stolen our fields. They block the water channels. Our children go hungry. Another added, we built this valley. We farmed it before they came. Mara listened without interrupting. Jace took notes while Talia asked gentle questions about harvests, weather, and the history of the river. Soon the elders began to speak less angrily, explaining how a flood years ago had changed the course of the water, forcing families to move. When they finished, Mara said, Thank you for sharing this. We will hear the crest as well. The elders frowned but nodded. If you can make them listen, you will do what none have done. The next day, the humans climbed into the mountains to meet the Crest Council. Their fortress clung to stone cliffs above roaring streams. Flags of silver and blue fluttered in the cold air. The Crest leaders were younger and more wary than the core elders. They stood tall, dressed in leather and steel, their faces guarded. We know why you are here, their chief said, but we do not believe anyone can make peace with those who betrayed us. We do not ask you to surrender, Mara replied. We ask to understand. The chief's stern face softened a little. He spoke of how their ancestors had settled the highlands when the valley grew crowded. When the flood came, they had offered to share the new water channels, but arguments turned bitter, and violence followed. They will not forgive us, the chief said, and we will not kneel. Talia leaned forward. Do you wish your children to grow in fear? The chief hesitated, looking at his guards. No, he said slowly, but I will not leave them weak. Peace is not weakness, Mara said gently. It is strength built on trust. For a moment, silence hung in the cold hall. Then the chief said, We will attend a council if you call it. Back at Tarves Station, the humans planned a gathering. They asked Imperial officers to prepare a neutral site, an old barn near a river crossing wide enough for both factions to meet. Soldiers set up tables and chairs while Jace and Talia arranged supplies of food and water to share. On the appointed morning, the core elders arrived first, suspicious, but hopeful. The crest leaders came later, stepping carefully, their guards tense. Imperial troops stood far back as Mara had requested, leaving the space open. Mara welcomed both sides. Today is not for fighting, she said. It is for listening. At first, the talks were slow. Old resentment surfaced, voices rose, and silence stretched. But Mara guided them patiently, asking each to explain their fears and hopes. Jace presented simple charts showing how water could be shared through new channels. Talia spoke of children who deserved a safe future. As hours passed, the room softened. Someone suggested a test project, repairing a broken dam together. Another proposed joint patrols to keep raiders from stealing supplies. Step-by-step ideas grew. When the sun set, no treaty was signed, but neither group wanted to leave. They agreed to meet again the next day. Over the following week, Mara and her team worked tirelessly. They walked the riverbanks with farmers from both sides, tracing where channels might be dug. Jace helped design a fair schedule for irrigation. Talia spoke with teachers about reopening schools in neutral villages. One evening, while inspecting a damaged canal, Mara saw a young Corps boy and a Crest girl tossing stones into the water, laughing together. Their parents watched warily but did not pull them apart. "Look," Talia whispered. "The future is already waiting." Not everyone welcomed the effort. A group of raiders who had grown rich from chaos tried to attack a supply wagon. Imperial soldiers stopped them before harm was done, but the message was clear. Some would resist peace. Mara met with both councils. "You have a choice," she said. "Protect this chance or let a few destroy it." The leaders, to their own surprise, stood together to condemn the raiders. For the first time, Corps and Crest guards shared a campfire to plan defenses. By the 10th day, an agreement began to take shape. It was simple but strong. Shared water rights, safe roads, a council of farmers and miners to solve disputes. There would be ceremonies to honor the dead on both sides, and a plan to rebuild villages using teams from each faction. At the signing, the Corps elders and Crest chief placed their marks on a plain wooden board. No grand banners, no parades, and only quiet resolve. Mara spoke softly. "This is the first step, not the last. Keep walking it together." The leaders nodded. For once, there were no shouts, only thoughtful silence. When the humans returned to Tarves Station, Commander Relvek was waiting. He looked astonished. "You did it," he said. "I thought this planet was lost." "We only helped them see their own strength," Mara replied. Relvek studied her. "How did you know they would choose peace?" "I didn't," she admitted. "I hoped." A week later, the Imperial flagship arrived to collect the envoys. General Keth stepped off the ramp, scanning the calm valley below. He had expected to find the same smoke and fighting that had filled Tarves for decades. Instead, he saw farmers working near the river and children chasing birds in the fields. Inside the station, Keth listened as the humans reported their work. He asked careful questions about their methods, how they chose words, how they kept tempers low, how they encouraged cooperation. "You use no weapons," he said at last. "Yet you win." Mara smiled faintly. "We don't seek to win. We seek to finish," Keth frowned, puzzled. "Finish?" "Every war ends," Mara explained. "The choice is whether it ends with ruins or with hope." Keth looked out a window at the peaceful scene. Slowly he nodded. Before leaving, Mara and her companions walked once more along the river where the two sides had begun repairs. Workers waved as they passed. The air smelled of wet earth and new growth. "This place will heal," Jace said quietly. Talia smiled. "And maybe teach others." Mara watched the sunlight shimmer on the water. Tarves was only one world, but it proved something larger. Even the oldest quarrels could bend toward calm if someone showed the way. As they boarded the shuttle, a small crowd gathered, farmers, miners, elders, and children from both sides. They raised their hands in farewell, not as subjects to rulers, but as friends to friends. The shuttle rose through soft clouds, leaving behind a valley no longer ruled by fear. Tarves was not yet perfect, but for the first time in 30 years, its people could dream without hearing the echo of battle. Mara looked out the window, her reflection faint against the sky. She thought of the Emperor waiting to hear what they had done. She thought of other worlds still fighting. "This is why we came," she murmured. The ship turned toward the stars, carrying 3 quiet envoys who had shown the Empire a lesson it had almost forgotten. Peace was possible, if someone dared to try. The Imperial shuttle carrying Mara, Jace, and Talia left Tarves behind and crossed the star lanes toward Zethra Prime. Through the wide cabin window, the planet faded into a quiet blue dot. None of the 3 spoke for a long while. They were tired but calm, satisfied with the work they had done. Jace finally leaned back in his seat. I still can't believe they signed an agreement, he said. After all those years, Talia smiled faintly, resting her tablet on her lap. They only needed someone to remind them they could choose another way. Mara gazed out at the stars. They found their own courage. We just gave it space to grow. The ship's pilot announced their arrival in Imperial space. Zethra Prime came into view, a shining sphere of silver oceans and gold-green continents. Sunlight glinted on the towers of Zethra's crown, the capital city. The sight stirred a quiet anticipation in the envoys. The Emperor would want answers. The royal landing field bustled as the shuttle settled. Soldiers and courtiers stood waiting, their banners catching the breeze. General Keth was there, tall and serious. Commander Relvek saluted smartly as the envoys stepped down. You've returned, Keth said, his voice steady but his eyes sharp. The reports from Tarvis were surprising. Surprising in a good way, I hope, Jace said with a small grin. Keth gave a slow nod. The war is over or close enough to it. I admit I didn't expect that. Relvek stepped forward, unable to hide his curiosity. How did you make them stop fighting? We tried for decades, Mara met his gaze. We listened until we understood, and then we helped them listen to each other. The words were plain, but Relvek sensed something larger behind them. Something he couldn't quite name. Inside the palace, the Emperor awaited them in the Hall of Radiance, a chamber filled with clear light from high windows. Marble floors gleamed like still water. Senators gathered along the sides, whispering as the envoys walked to the center. Vaylon, Emperor of the Zeltar, sat on a carved throne. His silver crest caught the sunlight. He studied the humans carefully as they knelt in respect. Rise, he said. I have read the reports from Tarvis. They speak of calm where there was none, of talks where only silence had ruled. I wish to hear it from your own voices. Mara spoke first. Your Majesty, the people of Tarvis wished for peace even if they didn't know how to find it. We gave them a way to speak to see their shared hopes. Vaylon's gaze narrowed slightly. You speak as if peace is a tool you can shape. Not shape, Mara said gently. Reveal. It is already inside them. One of the senators, a tall figure in violet robes, raised a hand. You solved a quarrel, yes, but only one. The Empire is vast. Could your methods work everywhere? Jace stepped forward. Not everywhere, not always. Some will choose war no matter what, but many fight only because they don't see another road. Even so, General Keth said, folding his arms. How can a few envoys achieve what fleets cannot? Talia answered softly. A fleet can only push people to obey. We invite them to decide. The chamber grew quiet. The senators seemed unsure whether to admire or doubt these calm strangers. After the formal session, Vaylon asked the envoys to follow him to a private garden. Guards stayed at the entrance while the Emperor led them along paths of white stone. Trees with silver leaves whispered in the breeze. A fountain murmured softly nearby. The Emperor stopped near the fountain and turned to them. Tell me, why do you come to worlds not your own? Why risk yourselves? Mara looked at the still water. Because wars do not only hurt soldiers, sire, they hurt children, farmers, teachers, anyone trying to live. If we have knowledge to ease that pain, we must share it. Vaylon studied her, then Jace and Talia. You say your people learned this wisdom from their own past? Yes, Jace replied. Earth once believed that strength meant only weapons. But every victory left emptiness. We learned that real strength is helping life grow after the battle is over, or stopping the battle before it starts. Talia added, we use tools, patient words, clear records, ways to watch how anger builds. Sometimes we need firm action, but only to guard the chance for peace. The Emperor folded his hands behind his back. You speak of patience as though it were a weapon. Patience is sharper than it looks, Mara said, smiling slightly. It keeps anger from ruling. Vaylon looked out over the garden, his face thoughtful. For centuries we have ruled by force. Perhaps we have forgotten other ways. That evening, the Emperor held a council with his generals and advisors. The envoys were invited to sit quietly at the edge while the debate unfolded. General Keth spoke first. Tarvis may be calm now, but we must watch it. If they break their agreement, we should be ready. A senator in blue robes replied, or we could support their counsel as the humans suggest. If they see we value their peace, they may keep it. Another official asked, could these Terran methods help us settle disputes in the border sectors? The chamber buzzed with possibilities. Some saw hope in the new approach. Others feared weakness. Finally, Valen raised his hand. Enough. The Tarvis Accord shows that peace is not a dream. But we must be careful. Force alone has guided us for too long. We must learn balance, he turned to the envoys. Would your people be willing to teach us, not only on Tarves, but across the Empire? Mara glanced at Jace and Talia. They nodded. We are ready to share what we know, she said. Valen inclined his head. Then I shall create a body to guide us, a council where your knowledge and ours may work together. Over the next days, the envoys met Imperial scholars, governors, and officers. They shared stories from Earth, how old enemies had turned allies, how villages had rebuilt after storms of violence, how patient talks had saved whole regions from ruin. One morning, Jace stood in a classroom where young Imperial cadets studied maps of troubled star systems. He showed them how to look beyond borders and numbers, to see hunger, pride, or fear hiding behind disputes. These are the roots, he said. If you feed them with more fear, the tree grows wild. If you water trust, you get branches strong enough to hold peace. The cadets listened, wide-eyed. Elsewhere, Talia worked with Imperial record keepers, helping them gather stories from border colonies. You can't solve what you don't understand, she told them. Start by hearing people, even the quiet ones. Mara met with governors and explained how to set up small councils so local voices could speak, before anger became violence. She showed how to create fair schedules for resources and how to write agreements simple enough for farmers and traders to grasp. Each meeting planted a seed. Despite the hope, not all were pleased. A few hardline senators whispered that the Empire should not depend on outsiders. Others feared that peace might weaken the fleets. One night, while the humans rested in their chambers, Relvek came to visit. He looked uneasy. Some people here don't like how much attention you're getting, he said quietly. Be careful. Thank you for telling us, Mara said. But we didn't come for praise. If they doubt us, we will let our work speak. Relvek nodded, still troubled, and left. The next morning, the Emperor announced his decision in a public ceremony. Standing before the Senate, he declared the founding of a new group, the Council of Resolution. It would bring together Imperial officials, scholars, and Terran envoys to study disputes and solve them, before they turned into wars. The strength of the Empire is not only in ships, Valen said. It is in wisdom, and in the calm that keeps ships at rest. Applause filled the hall. Some clapped politely, others with true warmth. The humans bowed deeply. Later in the quiet of the garden, Mara, Jace, and Talia spoke alone. This is bigger than I thought, Jace admitted. We came for one mission. Now they want us to help guide an empire. It's a heavy task, Talia said. But if we can teach them to see the choice between war and peace, even a little, it will matter. Mara looked at the sky beyond the silver leaves. Peace is never easy, but it's worth every step. That night the palace was calm. Lights shone on the rivers running through the city. From their balcony, the humans could see the domes reflecting the stars. They felt a quiet pride, but also a deep responsibility. Tarvis was only the beginning. Other worlds needed help. Border colonies, trading hubs, even rival empires that watched from afar. The task ahead was wide, but their purpose was clear. Mara placed her hands on the railing. The Emperor has opened a door, she said. We must walk through carefully. Jace chuckled softly. Careful has never been our problem. Talia smiled, but her voice was thoughtful. The more we succeed, the more others will question us. We must stay steady. We will, Mara said. Below, the palace gardens swayed in the soft wind. Somewhere inside, the Council of Resolution's first plans were already being written. Tomorrow would bring new discussions, new challenges, and maybe new chances to heal old wounds. For now, the three humans stood together in the quiet, aware that their calm strength had begun to reshape a vast empire, not through battle or fear, but through understanding and steady hands. Above them, the stars stretched wide and clear, a promise of worlds yet to learn what Tarvis had learned. Peace was not weakness but wisdom, and wisdom could guide even the greatest power. Morning light poured through the high windows of the Imperial Palace. In a long hall lined with silver columns, the newly formed Council of Resolution gathered for the first time. The polished floor reflected the bright sky, making it seem as though the meeting stood on the edge of the heavens. Mara Loren sat at a round table with Jace Wren and Talia Kor. Around them were Imperial senators, governors, and scholars. At the head of the table stood Emperor Valen, dressed in a simple dark robe rather than royal armor. His silver crest gleamed softly. He looked at the humans, then at his own people. "Today we begin a path none of us has walked before," he said. "We have built fleets and fortresses, but we have not built trust between stars. These Terran envoys have shown us another way. Let us see where it may lead." Applause rippled through the room. Even the cautious senators joined, though some clapped more slowly than others. Valen gestured to Mara. "Envoy Lauren, the floor is yours." Mara rose, calm as always. "Thank you, Your Majesty. Peace is not given, it is made. The Council's purpose is to give every world a chance to solve problems before they grow dangerous. We cannot promise success every time, but we can promise effort, patience, and fairness." Talia stood next, her voice soft but steady. "We must listen first. Before drawing maps or writing rules, we will hear stories of hunger, pride, fear, and hope. Only then can we guide them to safety." Jace smiled faintly. "And if storms rise despite our work, we will act quickly to calm them. Not with destruction, but with steady hands." Their words were simple, yet the hall felt charged with quiet strength. The Council's first mission came sooner than expected. A messenger arrived from the border world of Sathril, a mining colony where two guilds had begun to fight over rare crystals found deep under the mountains. Small disputes had turned to sabotage. Families were fleeing the tunnels. Valen looked at the envoys. "Will you take this mission?" "We will," Mara replied. Within hours, the Terrans and a small Imperial team boarded a fast courier ship. The journey took 2 days through blue-lit corridors of hyperspace. During the flight, they read reports, studied maps, and asked questions about the guild's history. "Two groups," Talia said, scrolling through data. "One builds machinery, the other handles transport. Both need the crystals for their work. And both believe the other tries to take more than their share," Jace added. "Old contracts, new greed," Mara nodded. "It may not only be greed, maybe fear. Fear of losing what keeps them alive." Sathril was a rugged world of red hills and silver peaks. At the main settlement, miners and haulers moved nervously through narrow streets. The air smelled of dust and machine oil. The council team met first with the Machinery Guild in a workshop filled with half-finished engines. The leader, a broad-shouldered woman named Alra, wiped grime from her hands and spoke with frustration. "We cut the ore, shape the tools, keep the colony running. But the haulers demand more payment every month." Later, in a hangar on the far side of town, the Transport Guild's head, a wiry man named Rin, told a different story. "We risk our ships to bring the crystals to market. Without us, their work is worthless. They want all the gain while we take the dangers." Mara listened carefully to both sides. She saw tired faces, worn boots, and deep worry behind hard words. These were not enemies at heart, just neighbors trapped in a circle of blame. That evening, she met with Jace and Talia in a quiet room above the station's mess hall. "They both feel unprotected," she said. "Each thinks the other will leave them with nothing, so they strike first," Jace said. Talia looked thoughtful. "We should gather them somewhere calm. No tools, no ledgers, only a table and time." The next morning, the council invited both guilds to an old storehouse near the mines. Sunlight spilled through cracks in the walls, warming the dusty floor. Simple benches formed a circle. Imperial guards waited outside but stayed far enough not to intrude. At first, the talk was tense. Accusations flew, but Mara's steady tone and Talia's patient questions began to cool the air. Jace drew simple charts on a slate, showing how cooperation could double profits and make transport safer. As the hours passed, memories replaced anger. Miners spoke of shared meals after long shifts. Pilots recalled rescues during storms. Slowly, laughter returned. By sunset, the guild leaders were willing to try a plan: a joint team to measure crystal loads, clear schedules for hauling, and a promise to meet weekly to settle disputes. That night, the humans walked along a ridge above the settlement. Stars shone cold and clear. Below, lights glimmered in the mining camp. Calm for the first time in months. They did most of the work themselves, Jace said. "They just needed to see they could," Mara replied. Talia hugged her tablet to her chest. "If we help them build a habit of talking, the calm will last." The next morning, both guilds signed a compact on a plain iron sheet. They shook hands, rough, calloused hands meeting in quiet trust. Word of the agreement spread quickly through Sathril. Miners returned to their tunnels. Pilots prepared for safer runs. Children played near the landing pads, their laughter echoing off metal walls. Back on Zethra Prime, the news arrived ahead of the envoys. Senators debated what it meant. Some praised the council's success. Others warned that not every quarrel could be solved with words. When Mara, Jace, and Talia returned, the Emperor welcomed them in the throne hall. "You have given Sathril more than peace," Vaylin said. "You have given them hope." He looked around at his advisors. "Let us not measure strength only by fleets. Strength is also the power to calm storms before they rise." A cheer broke from many in the room. Even those who doubted found themselves moved. In the weeks that followed, the Council of Resolution sent small teams to other troubled systems. Trade posts where merchants argued, stations where workers demanded fair treatment, even tiny farming moons where neighbors fought over water. Everywhere, the presence of calm listeners changed the air. Not every problem ended quickly, but people began to believe that talking could matter. Mara kept careful notes of each mission. Jace designed training for young officers who wanted to learn the craft of peace. Talia built archives of stories, proof that cooperation was not just a dream but a choice. One evening, the three friends sat together on a balcony overlooking the glowing city. Ships floated like fireflies above the river ports. They spoke softly. "We've done much," Jace said, "but there's more waiting." "There will always be more," Talia replied. "That's the nature of this work." Mara leaned on the railing, her face calm in the moonlight. "The important thing is to keep showing what humans have learned, that strength is not only in ending fights but in helping life continue after." Far beyond the palace, news of the council spread. Merchants on distant routes began to settle price wars before they turned violent. Colonies formed small councils inspired by Tarvis and Sathril. Even a few rival empires sent quiet envoys to ask about the Terrans' methods. One night, Emperor Vaylin invited the humans to walk with him through the palace gardens. Silver leaves swayed in the soft wind. "You have given us much to think about," he said. "For a long time we believed peace belonged only to the weak. Now I see it as the hardest work of all." Mara bowed slightly. "It is hard, yes. But once people taste calm, they often want to keep it." The Emperor smiled faintly, rare warmth in his stern face. "You and your people have changed us already. The Empire will never see conflict quite the same." As the stars rose, the three envoys stood at the edge of the gardens. They could feel the size of the galaxy around them. Countless systems, each with its own worries, each capable of better paths. Talia whispered, "Do you think we can reach them all?" "Not alone," Mara answered. "But we don't need to. We only need to teach others to carry the same light." Jace nodded. "One calm voice becomes many." They stood together silent for a moment, watching starlight dance on the palace pools. Behind them, the Council of Resolution's chambers glowed with quiet activity. Plans were being made, routes drawn, missions prepared. The work of peace had only begun. Weeks later, an Imperial dispatch ship left Zethra Prime on a long journey. Inside sat new mediators, Imperial officers trained by the Terrans, ready to help a distant colony solve a long-standing quarrel. As the ship leapt into hyperspace, its crew spoke with quiet excitement about their task. Mara watched from a viewing platform, Jace and Talia beside her. She felt a steady pride, not for herself but for the growing circle of people willing to try something better. "This is why we came," she said softly. "Not just to end one war, but to show that ending war is possible." Jace smiled. "And the galaxy listened." Talia nodded. "It's only the beginning." Above them, the night sky spread wide, filled with worlds waiting for calm hands and steady voices. Humanity's gift was not conquest or fear. It was the patient art of helping others step away from ruin, and so, in the heart of an empire once known only for its fleets, a new order took root, one shaped not by battles, but by understanding humans don't fight wars. They end them.